I wanted to ask you about organic food, and there's some people that question whether organic food is any better for you. Talk about that.
If it's done right, it's definitely better for you. There was one study that showed that people who ate organic food had less toxins excreted in their urine than people who didn't eat organic food. So so the pesticides and the fertilizers and toxins were there. They were part of the food that was not raised on an organic farm compared to what it was. And so then the big question comes out, well, is that significant? Does it matter if you have a few more toxins, these teeny amounts of toxins, is that a problem? Well, for some people it is. We look at it in integrative medicine as the ability to detox. Some people have an easy ability to detox. They can take a whole bunch of lead and excrete it, no problem. They can. There was one guy, a farmer, who had, I think it was pesticides. And he had this big tank full of pesticides, and it was spilling out, and he's wiping it up, and he doesn't even have any gloves on or anything. Mm-hmm. And everybody's going, like this, and he goes, I've never had a problem with it. And he may not. Mm-hmm. But some people who have small amounts of that pesticide are going to end up with Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. And Parkinson's disease is one of the issues, because it affects the brain, that comes up with organophosphate poisoning, which comes from farms. So if you eat organic, you're less likely to have problems.
Now, is the food itself, the organic food, does it have a higher nutritional value that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. If the fertilizers if they use organic fertilizers like dung, for example, manure kinds of fertilizers, I would imagine they should be. Right. Because chemical fertilizers give you a specific chemical to perform a specific task in the plant, whereas the dung fertilizers are more general and provide nutrients that the plant doesn't need but you do. Selenium is a good example. Mm-hmm. If your soil is devoid of selenium, you won't get any, and then your chances of cancer and Parkinson's disease and neurological disorders goes up dramatically when you don't have selenium. Mm-hmm.
Talk about genetically modified GMO food. What do you know about that? There's a controversy with that as well. Is there any harm to consuming that?
In some cases, yes. Most of the people who are against GMO foods are not against GMO foods just because they're GMO as a rule, but rather because they put them out onto the market untested. So do we know what's going to happen? Do we know what it causes? We don't even know. So we're giving people, we're experimenting on the population, and that's where people have a problem. Is I don't want to be part of your experiment, right. And what do? Well, some GMO products are made to increase the lectin production of plants, and what that is the immune system of the plant. What is that immune system against? Well, it's against animal cells. Well, guess what we are? Animals, and we have animal cells. So we have the glycoproteins in our intestines, for example, that these lectins can bind to and cause leaky gut syndrome, or irritable bowel syndrome, or celiac disease, for example. Or cause other problems like allergies when you get kind of a leaky gut problem, because the cells lining the intestines don't reproduce fast enough. And so the GMO could be a problem, at least for some people, but has it ever been tested? We don't know.
So in America, it's hard to know if your food is GMO or not, but what are some like corn and soybeans, I believe, typically are GMO.
Almost all soy is GMO. Unless it specifically says non-GMO, it's sure to be GMO. Okay. Corn, the majority of corn. I don't remember the exact statistic. I think it was like 80% of corn was GMO in the United States. Other areas, like in Europe, they won't use. They've banned GMO from being grown.
Yeah.
in their areas.
And they have laws that they have to label it as GMO or they can't even sell it, maybe? I don't know.
It depends on the country. In some places they can import it, in other places they can.
Okay. So if someone wanted to know, how do I avoid GMO food? Stay away from all corn, high fructose corn syrup, corn products, as well as soy. Anything else?
Yeah, if it's certified organic, then it has to be non-GMO.
Okay.
And so if the certified organic label, that's another benefit of it, is that you're not going to be an experiment.
Mm-hmm. So some foods are probably more important to eat organic than others, like bananas maybe not as much because they have the outer peel that might protect it, or do you say just eat organic bananas?
Well, I take the position that a lot of my patients take. I buy organic when I can. If it's not organic, I'm not going to refuse all organic food. I have some people that absolutely will never eat anything GMO, anything that's not organic, they won't. Mm-hmm. But most people are pretty reasonable about it in that they'll go to the store. If they don't have any organic bananas, fine, I'll buy some regular bananas. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with it. Now, as far as the peeling ideas and all that, there's some evidence for that, but mm-hmm. you still get the chemicals into the fruit.
Mm-hmm. So my son came home from school the other day and he said, "Dad, did you know that my generation now has a lower life expectancy than your generation because of the food quality and food supply?" Is that anything that you're familiar with, or does that surprise you at all?
I take a dim view of predictions because they're almost always wrong.
Right.
The life expectancy is continually increasing. In fact, the group of people in the United States that's growing the fastest is the over 100 group. So at this point, that doesn't seem to be happening. However, people are looking into the future and saying, wait a minute, we have a 20% rate of diabetes that is growing very rapidly, and these other diseases of heart disease, neurological diseases are increasing rapidly. Cancer always stayed about the same. That's the funny thing. The per capita cancer rate really hasn't changed much since the 70s when they had the war on cancer. And lung cancer is still the #1 cause of death from cancer. Heart disease is still the #1 cause of death from, well, supposedly. I sign a lot of death certificates because I'm the medical director of a nursing home. And what do you put on a death certificate? It's a funny thing. No one thinks about this. They're doing this research on cause of death, and they don't think about who wrote that cause of death on there.
Right.
So I get a death certificate, and I have to write a cause of death on there. So what do? Well, I go to the diagnoses and I just pick a diagnosis. Which one can I pick? I can pick any one I want, Yeah. This lady has 10 diagnoses and I'm going to pick one. Well, she has heart disease, she has bladder cancer, she had a stroke. Let's pick the bladder cancer one. Yeah. So anyway, as far as cause of death goes. But because of the diabetes and the increased obesity problem, for example, a lot of people are saying that now that there's a peak of life expectancy and it's going to drop down.